Now, the first thing I want to talk about before I even go into that video editing process is I want to talk about this really important thing that you're going to see happening, especially if you're using your cell phone, is that oftentimes, especially with the visual effects tutorials, they say use a tripod. Well, sometimes that isn't a possibility, right? Especially using a lightweight cell phone or hand holding a digital camera in some way. And that a great way to clean up handheld video. I mean, come on, we've all seen this before where you're watching something posted on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, and it's filmed on a cell phone and it is all over the place. And it just makes for poor quality. I actually find that in a lot of shots I do for people where they want something that appears like it's handheld is to actually film it on a tripod and then add the camera shake afterwards. So I just, again, have this little clip here. Go ahead and mute my audio. Need my audio on right now. And you see that this video clip is just bouncing all over the place. Let me just crop it into there. And a big issue that you have, though, is, a lot of times you have no choice but to film with what you got. And you see it's all over the place. It's got too much shake. It's kind of unprofessional. Believe it or not, most video filmed is done with a tripod, especially if you're going to be doing color corrections or camera tracking or motion tracking or even doing visual effects. Most of those visual effects say use a tripod so you have a stable shot. Well, it's kind of hard to do sometimes with using a cell phone. So I wanted to first introduce you guys to this idea of stability or, warp stabilizer. Often what it's called. Now, you can find that, of course, here in the effects, okay? And it should be in the video effects. And if you can't find it here, you can always just type in warp or whatever effect you're looking for. And you see it's actually located here in the distort, and it's called warp stabilizer. And if you drag that onto your clip, what it's going to do is it's going to look for features. So it's going to look and analyze this video, look for things in the background, look for things like horizon line, and try to lock in on that so that it can basically auto key moving the video left, right, rotation, scale, or whatever parameters you want to utilize to actually lock in and try and force the video to not move. So it actually gives that appearance of using a tripod, even though you may not have used one. Now you'll see it's analyzing. I can go to the effects controls here, and you're going to see that the warp stabilizer has been dropped into the bottom. You see it says time remaining 46 seconds, and it's analyzing. So it's looking for features. It's kind of the opposite of camera tracking. It's looking for features and trying to make them stay put. Now there's a little bit of parameters that are happening by doing that. You see, it is doing a smooth motion. I could also say no motion at all, which means it'll be even more extreme. But because you're holding that camera, right, you're kind of just by virtue of holding the camera in your hand, you're just moving it left to right, up and down, rotating a little bit, and that makes for sloppy footage. So you see now it's analyzed it. It's now doing a stabilizing process. And what you noticed in order to create that stabilized action, you have to give up some things. And so you can see, you can give up position, you can give up position, scale, rotation, you can give up perspective, and you can do a full-on subspace warp. Now, I'm not keen on the subspace warp because it tends to really kind of, in trying to make it stable, it overdoes, and the picture sometimes can get very, well, what's called warpy, because it's moving it in all kinds of directions. If I just say position, scale, and rotation, it's not going to warp anymore. It's only going to automatically factor in position, scale, and rotation to make this image now look like it's been filmed on a locked, stable tripod, which again, if you're on a boat, is kind of hard to do, but that's where I love this kind of tracking or stabilizing effect. You see it's doing a 50% smooth. And because it's doing with position, scale, and rotation, it's automatically stabilizing and cropping and auto scaling to fill the picture. So you're going to lose some of your picture in order to keep it full in frame. And you can see there's even some advanced factors. So let's go to do this. Let me rewind to the beginning, hit spacebar so I can show you the stabilized version now. You see, it is warping it a little bit, trying to keep smooth motion. But this is where it's kind of neat to see this, because I even come here and let's go ahead and do this as a, kind of want a new sequence. Let's see here. File, new sequence. And I'll just leave it at 1080, enter, because I wanted to get a new one here so that I could go and show you the before and afters. Now, After Effects has this as well. I actually find that it works pretty well in After Effects. I'll just change sequence settings. And so you see that is the nested clip that I just stabilized. I'm going to go ahead and scale it so I can put it side by side. The unstabilized version. Just to show you guys the before and after of those. Let's see, this is 35. And this is typically how you would present your before and afters. That. That. So it's down. Let's go ahead. 75% to 100%. There. So these are side by side now. Now, the one on the left is the original clip. The one on the right is the one that has been stabilized. And watch if I hit play now. You can see the difference between the befores and the afters. And yeah, I did lose some of my footage, but it isn't rocking the boat, so to say, as much as it was before. Now, what's neat about this, mute that away, is there are other factors that we can do here in the stabilizer besides just the one that I showed you as far as smooth motion. Watch if I say no motion at all. So this is going to try, and now I'm going to lose even more of my content, right? It's going to crop and scale more of my original video, but you can see what it did there, right? And I lost a lot of footage there. However, I scale it up now. Go back to my sequence side by side. You're going to see that it is trying to keep that horizon not moving much at all, but you're losing even more. See that? But look at how shaky this is compared to how smooth and stable that is. So this is something that you're going to find you're going to need for even like in 2 weeks when we play around with the cinematograph, where again, you have to have a stable video. You need to have something that's not moving much at all in order to pull off the cinematograph. Not unlike, again, some of those visual effects tutorials that kind of say use a tripod. But it's just kind of neat to play with this, to see what you can do with this. Obviously, saying no motion at all is quite extreme. If I say smooth motion again, and then even just say, hey, just worry about the position instead of all those others, then you're going to get even a more different results. So there it's just trying to take away a little bit of that extra motion by just doing the positions. We can focus on, let's go with full on subspace warp. And you see I'm losing even more footage now in order to keep that as a stable shot. Now, this is pretty extreme here. Like I said, they're moving, the boat's moving, I'm filming, or the person filming with the camera is moving back and forth. So it's pretty extreme there. But I do this a lot with even a lot of, like, say, action footage, like from a GoPro, where, again, you want to smooth the motion out so it's not a lot of vibration. Maybe the GoPro's attached to a guy on a, I don't know, mountain bike or, you know, some other device. Just usually when you're doing handheld footage. Now, let me go ahead and just show you just an even simpler version of this with just a typical handheld shot. Okay, I think this guy said this is what's coming up here in the footage for the cinematograph. Let's see, videos for cinematograph, and let's say shaky video. Let's just do this. Now, when we get to the GIF and the cinemagraphs, I'll use actually After Effects and show you how to stabilize it there as well. So here again, we have this shaky footage, and you can see this is me just filming into the backyard using my cell phone. But you see how I'm just barely shaking that footage, right? Barely shaking that camera. Go back to our effects, or stabilizer. Because here you're going to get that example of, okay, there's not an extreme a lot of motion, but it is a handheld footage, and how I can literally make it look like a tripod. Let's say no motion at all. I'll just say position, scale, rotation. And you see the progress, 22 seconds left. Finish up. It's going to stabilize. And now you can see the before and after. You see how it looks? See, there is a little bit of warp going on there, just a little bit, but it's trying to minimize the movement. See that? And it just ends up looking like a better picture than kind of it moving all around. So you see the after. You want to look at the before. That lots more, and it just makes for sloppy footage. So just a cool little, heads up on what if you shoot footage with your cell phone camera or other lightweight camera. You're not using a gimbal, you're not using a steady cam or a tripod, and you can make your footage look a little better. But this is also one of those things that when you do that, you do sacrifice, you do give up some of your picture. Because it is going to scale, it is going to position, it is going to rotate, and so it will automatically, if I say preserve scale, it is, see, there is just a little bit of shift in there. You can see all these different options here. And if you really want to dive deeper into this, there's plenty of other tutorials out there. You can even see where we can go into the advanced section here, which gives us, detailed analysis, so that you can then, let's say, copy this information and then send it off to, say, a visual effects team that can take that movement and then apply it to, say, a 3D camera inside of Maya or something like that. So just some neat stuff to show you. Don't want to get too deep into it now, but that is essentially working with the warp stabilizer. And I just think it's a pretty neat little tool to kind of clean up or make your footage look a little bit, better in its content. All right. Now then, let's jump back into just doing this video edit now that we've seen it. All right, so in the process, of course, like I showed you guys last week of working with an edit, you can pull all your footage in. Now remember that your footage, when you drag it in, you are at the whim of what these formats are. So you're going to see that some of these are 1920, 1080, some of them are 30 frames per second, some of them are 24, some of them are 25, because they all came from some online content. Some even have audio to them all. And if we drag them in here, they're just going to be dropped in typically by alphabetical order, but not necessarily the order that you want to come them in. Also, you can see this particular clip was actually exported out from whatever device to include an audio channel, even though it has no audio. Well, if you want to clean it up and separate the link between here, you can right click and simply hit the unlink, and that will allow you now to remove the audio out of there completely. This is rather important when we're talking again about filming with our cell phones, which are they're not going to have a very good audio quality to them. So you might want to just get rid of it and then replace it with your own audio. Now, when it comes to editing inside of Adobe Premiere, the greater question is what time or how long should a clip last? Like I said last week, like to use audio or music files to do that. So I can go into my audio file here and I can drag audio clip in there and let that audio now be in my audio track 1. I'm just going to go ahead and just trim it off just to get rid of the extra so I can zoom in and start to look at the details of this audio file. You can see here, smaller, and I can even expand it here. So I can see these audio pops and whistles. Now, watch the audio over here to see if it clips into the red. It's a little too loud. So I tend to come over here to the level, unkey it, and just drop it down. Most digital audio guys, you want to live in between the -3 to -6 decibels. You don't want it peaking. It's far kinder to have people turn up the volume than to blast their ears out when you first hit play. Now, so there you have an audio file, and you can already hear that it jumps in immediately at full volume. Well, this is where we can use some of our default transitions, audio transitions and video transitions. This is the power of Adobe Premiere. They have these built in. So I can go to audio transitions, crossfade, and do an exponential fade at the beginning. And you see, even if I select it, it's going to be a fade. Let's see where we're at. Highlight it. And you see here it is right here. Okay. And what that has done is just has it fading from, so we don't have to key our decibel levels anymore. Now, what I can do, just listening with my ears here and looking at the waveforms, is I can say, okay, I have this intro that I can put a title in here to intro as well, but based on this music kind of cycling through on a 4/4 beat, it's basically what it is. Every 4 beats, it repeats itself until you hit the 8, and then it kind of goes. So I can basically say to myself, right about here is maybe where I want my first video clip to actually start. I'm going to let the audio designate what video comes up first. And then we get into basics narrative storytelling. Well, what am I telling a story about? This footage, again, is about these jungle ruins. So I'm probably going to want to start off with what's called an establishing shot. And this is where you watch Seinfeld, you watch South Park, you watch most movies. The first shot you see is establishing the who, what, when, where, why. What time of year is it? What's the weather outside? Where are we? And you're outside. So this is where the first clip I probably want to have here is going to be this establishing shot from the outside. So I'm going to just come here. Let's go back and zoom in to get my mark. That was right here. Okay, where that little peak starts. That's where I want my first clip to start. And then I can follow the music to see at what point do I want to change the picture. Okay, and there I had another one right there that I can use, where it kind of cycles through. It should be right here. See, there's another little pop. So I'm going to have that clip end there. Again, I can move the marker, or I can use the razor. And now I'm going to figure out what my next clip is going to be. What's my next video? Let's expand this out so I can see. Well, this is where you get into telling a story is, again, you have your subject of what your story is. In this case, I have more video of the ruins than the monkey. So my theme is the ruins. Well, the monkey is what's known as B-roll, as in sub-character. Or if you're telling a story and someone says, yeah, well, what time is it? And you show a shot of a clock. Or, you know, you're filming Clearwater Beach or something like that, and there's a seagull. And then you have people go jumping in the water. The theme is the beach. The sub-characters are B-roll that help tell that story. So I'm going to take this little monkey clip here, and I'm just going to clip it. I don't need a full version here. Go ahead and move this out of the way. And I'm going to have my next clip here be, oops, too far. Little monkey as a B-roll. Go ahead and zoom in. Okay. Spacebar. Okay, and I kind of like it here. Looks like a good break here, right on this peak, to say that's where that monkey's going to stop. To then show, I started with my establishing shot going up from the outside of the temple. So let's find this shot here, which is now going into the temple. Put that one there. And this clip, of course, does need to have some color correction. So let's go ahead here, find my video effects, color correction, and I can play around with either brightness or contrast or lumetri. Lumetri kind of gives all in one. And whenever we add an effect, it's going to add it to the bottom here of our effects controls. So I've got basic correction here. Maybe my exposure needs to be a little higher. There we go. See, just to brighten up, it's a little too dark. Contrast, highlights, all these other things can be adjusted here. Saturation, maybe the saturation is too high because I've added exposure, so you bring down the saturation to take away some color. So it kind of goes with the outside a little bit better. So see, it's very desaturated. And then I get into here, and now I'm going into the temple. So let's just continue to keep going here. And there's the music cycling again. So let's go zoom in on that mark. And you see right about there is where the music changes. So I will edit my clip down. Let's go find our second piece of monkey footage. Snap it to there. Go and temporarily hide this. Okay, so now it's just a matter of finding a point of time to change the monkey footage. I found it to be a little bit long, so let's just say, see, I'm looking for features here where things change dramatically, like right here maybe. Okay, so let's drop that, edit that monkey to stop there. Let's go ahead and put this last clip at the end. And this is the footage inside the template. See, and right there, that cycle kind of ended right there. So that's a good way to end, where that music, the cycle of the music kind of ended there. So I could literally say, okay, that's the end of my footage. That's the end of all my edit. This is the end of the story. Well, there's a couple ways to do this now. I could either grab my razor blade and just chop it all off there. I could go all the way to the right and just move it to the end there, or I could just use this simple little mark out. You see that ends all content at that point. Now, the problem with the mark out is that if I was to go now and add that audio transition, again, of an exponential fade at the very end here, you see it won't put it there. So this is where it is kind of nice to say, cut it. Get rid of all that end audio. And what's nice about getting rid of all that end audio is it officially ends there, so I don't end up with another minute and a half of just black screen. Now I can put that end audio clip, and that does now an exponential fade out. Now, similar to what I just showed you there with the audio is something now we need to take into account right here, because I will not be able to put a fade transition here. It will only be able to go at the end. So this actually is a good chance to just crop that audio or that video off there. All right. So now I have my entire clip, or my entire sequence, I should say. All done. But pay attention here to when the picture changes, because it's going to change at in a specific time and place. And then it fades off. All right. So now we're getting into some details here as far as, okay, got the edit timed properly. Now these are what are called jump cuts right now, meaning it immediately changes to another picture. And that works great, specifically when you're dealing with action or something like that. You know, quick bounce action, cut, 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 cut. But that doesn't always work really well for certain shots where you're kind of telling a soft introductory kind of story. So that's where we can utilize other video transitions besides just the cut, the jump cut. And that's where we have all these other different video transitions built in. Now, last week I showed you where the cross dissolve is the default transition. And all you need to do to apply cross dissolve is highlight all your video and hit Control D. And you see it automatically places these dissolve transitions. You see they're all set to be 1 second. And you can even see how it applies. So I can even expand this here. You see now it's 227. So just easier tools built into Premiere that allow you to do a lot of, you can even see how it applies that between there. And that is going to give me just simple cross dissolve. Go ahead and mute my mic, or mute my music. And so now each video clip will cross dissolve into the next clip. 1 second in length, see? And it's kind of nice the way it does that. Very easy using the simple basic command of Control D or Command D. Now, there's nothing wrong with these. Those cross dissolves work kind of nice, right? Just kind of going, you know, in and out, fading in and out of from one video clip to the next. But what if you want something that's a little more extreme? Okay, well, that's where we get into some of these other types of dissolves. And some of these are, again, page peel, slide, push. Slides typically deal with meanwhile scenarios, like think about like TV shows where, you know, you're looking at a crime scene or something like that, and they've arrested the guy, and after they're looking at the crime scene, and the next cut or the next transition slides across to show you the guy and being interrogated or something. A lot of these transitions represent time and distance. So be aware, like that's what, you know, wipes, some of these, you'll band wipe. Now, again, if you want to put those in there, maybe here between the first clip and the first monkey, you know, we can have a different type of transition. That one's called barn doors. You'll see what it will do. Okay. Now, again, each has their purpose. Clock wipe. Let's see what this does. I find that a lot of these are very 80s or 70s, kind of cheesy. See, not all that impressive, but you know, they serve a purpose. Maybe I'll do a gradient wipe. Let's see what that is. That might be a little softer. And you can see gradient wipe settings, softness of 10. I could even select an image to use rather than a gradient wipe here. So that's kind of cool. Let me show you what we can do there. Watch this. Whoops, let me grab that. Because you can even, go away, grab a grayscale value of a picture and it will wipe using that. Let's see, I'll use a photo. Just go photo, image search. Image. Let's look for tools, color, so I can choose black and white. Come on. Color. White. Let's see here. Oh, here. Use this. There, fine. Use them. And it's cool because you can actually use an image here to represent a gradient wipe over time, just any grayscale value. Remember, what does grayscale represent? Grayscale represents positive, negative, visible, not visible, right? Transparent. Pro. And I'll just add this to the VFX shot selection. Okay. Back here, select image. Where's that? Now it's not showing up. It must not be a true JPEG. Just do this. I'll just use that picture there. Why not? And you see now it has placed that gradient wipe here. So watch, if I hit play, it's going to use that image as a wipe. See? See if I let me stop right in the center there. See? Where the white is the bottom layer or the previous video, and the color in the middle, the black, represents the next. So it's kind of like using an alpha channel. I don't like it. So the transitions you use, yes, we have lots of them at our fingertips here. Yeah, they're easier to just, you know, slap on there, but just because you have them doesn't mean you should use them. See, I'm going to use this little film dissolve here instead, which looks very similar to a cross dissolve. All right, so let's get back here now. I've got my audio controlling the timing of my video edits. I've got my videos in proper order, and I've got a transition between there. Now we can go and we can start playing around with an actual title element. Okay, and we have a few other neat ways to do this. For example, I can go into the, let's see here, So we do have, well, let's go and switch. Watch this. Let's go ahead and switch from window workspace to doing graphics. And this is now going to change my interface here out of editing to give me more graphics-based tools. So like opening title graphics. And there are legacy graphics built into Premiere, which give us pre-made title slate, as they call them. See? So I can, essential graphics. I can do angled coming up next. I can do credits. You see how it's got built-in credits. I can go find, bold image caption, lower thirds. Here, look at bold title. Watch this. I can drag that right down in here. And it is a pre-made template now that is in here that if I even just double click, it'll give it to me in the source file, right? Well, maybe not. Maybe it wants me to go into here. So you see your title here. Well, text right here allows me to grab the T tool. Now see my tools shifted around here. Let me go ahead, now that I've got this, let's just go back to editing. But you see, I had to go into that mode to get that window to pop up to get these essential graphics. Now I can grab my T tool, and instead of your title here, change it to Journey of I don't know. And instead of saying episode, let's say by me. So these are, again, they're pre-built. It's just a simple title block here. I can change color. I could do some other stuff to it. You see, as it overlaps, it actually stays. I've got animation capabilities where I could have it fade up or fade down. Let me zoom in a little bit here so I can actually time it out properly. It's just because it's music again. Let me unmute to find out where I want my titles to begin. Okay, so I'm going to have my title start right here at this big pop in my audio. That's where it's going to start. And then halfway through my first clip is where I'm going to have it fade out. Okay, which means I'll have it last to maybe here. And just expand it out. Now, do I want it to just appear? Do I want it to animate in? Do I want it to slide in, slide out? Whatever animation I want there, I could use those pre-made transitions. Okay, slide in from the top, tumble in, or I could just hit Control D and have it automatically get dissolved at the beginning and the end. So we get this. Now I'm getting a little bit of lag time here because, like I said, my media encoder is eating most of my RAM. But it is actually getting there to where I've got this ready to go. And now remember, this title, I can make a title in After Effects, really dynamic, animated, however long I want this to be. You see this title is lasting for 2:10. I can make this interesting title and After Effects and import that in and drop it over top as an After Effects file, a composition. That's what After Effects is built for. But in a nutshell, once you have your minimum of 5 videos edited together with music, you can even add sound effects and stuff like that, get a title element for it, then just make sure you save. Control S, you've actually noticed it's been auto saving in the background. You can always verify that by going into the project folder here. And you're going to see Adobe Premiere Pro auto save. Let's see. Well, let's see here. I'm looking for today, which is the 13th. So let me get rid of these old auto saves here. And these are all old here. And you can see it's actually saved every, see, 23, 37, 49. So it's basically saving every, what, 12 minutes? 15 minutes? It's auto saving as I go through. And that's pretty convenient. But when we're all done, we just want to save it, Control S, and then we can export. And that's simply going to the File, Export Media, and choosing the basic premise of what settings it is supposed to be here in our project description. Remember, part of this is not just using the tools or experimenting with the tools of the software, but also understanding the language and the terminology of things. So I could come here and I could say, okay, yes, this is supposed to be a 1920 1080 or HD TV 1080 encoded H.264 and PEG-4. So that's where I could come H.264, verify that, come to my preset here and say high quality 1080. Go to my output name, which you see is all over the place because it's based upon that first video it read. So I can click on this name here and give it the proper location and the proper name. You see it's going to strange folder here that it's not supposed to go to. Premiere Pro, last name assignment 5. And again, I could say last name, video, edit, hit save, and hit export. Now, I'm not going to do it right now, but that's how you would do it. I'm not going to actually export it because I'm afraid it would mess with my media encoder that's currently got another 15, 20 minutes going. Now, another thing I wanted to show you here, though, is there's this thing that we saw, like whether you're in Photoshop or whatever, or in After Effects, when we did that thing called nesting by basically making a new composition and dragging the old one into it. Some people can call it pre-comp. But if you select everything in our sequence window here, right click, and nest, you can then nest it, or name it whatever, and you see it is now collapsed the stack into just one single track. It's exactly the same. And if I want to get back to it, I could go back into my project window, and you see the nesting is this green layer, but the original is right here called, see the symbol? That's the original sequence. So I can always go back to it by simply double clicking this. But the nest, what's nice about it is now it's all done. This is where we can do some interesting things with this. For example, we can play around with, color correction for the entire film, for the entire video. So I could come here to, like, say, my Lumetri presets. See, you've got some presets here. So I can do maybe cinematic. Let's just do faded film. Let's see, Cinespace 50, film stock styles. This is just different color. Let's just do a weird one here. Technical, full to legal range, speed looks. Let's try with speed looks. Universal. And let's do a SL Blue Intense. I don't know. And drop that onto the entire clip. And you notice it now has changed the color value. Go ahead and mute my audio for every single video. See? So think about that. When you actually nest and then you apply a color correction or a speed grade is often the term used in the filmmaking process. You speed grade it. So you apply a color correction to the entire, it's very similar to what we did using the photo filter in Photoshop. See, everything gets a similar color. So it looks like it was filmed from the same camera on the same day at the same location, right? Rather than coming from different locations. And this is literally what they do in films, like when you're watching Marvel or Harry Potter or The Matrix. Every scene has a specific color grade to it.